This is too. There we go. Hello and welcome to another Candid conversation at the Women Deliver 2019 conference. I'm your host, Kgomotso Matsunyane, and I'm here with some incredible women and movement leaders. My guests are Ailbhe Smyth, who is the co-director of Together for Yes, Ireland, Tchen, who's a co-founder of the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund, and Vanina Escales, one of the founders of Niuna Menos. So welcome to everybody. And Vanina is joined by her translator, Ricardo Mimbela. So, Ailbhe, I want to start with you. Ireland won an incredible victory about a year ago. What was it that ultimately propelled you? Because you've been fighting this for a while. So what was it this time that allowed for this victory to take place?
35 years fighting and getting to know one another, being able to make a big, strong coalition, taking the measure of each other, preparing and planning for years and years, grasping hold of the agenda and saying, we're going out there to say, this is what women need, and to really set the terms of the debate. And ultimately, I think what pushed it over the line, way over the line, 66.4%, was women being very courageous and talking about their experiences that had been silenced for decades, their experiences of abortion. But I do think it was strategic planning, working together in coalition, and moving forward in that huge collective movement right across our society. That was really important. And having messages which spoke very directly to people, like we had the three C's were care, compassion, and change. And care was, do you really care about women? And can women have the care that women need? So it was about, I think, putting the whole discourse, the whole narrative around abortion on different territory. At least it had never been on that terrain really in Ireland before. It was always presented as abortion as a moral issue, a theological issue, abortion is wrong, and so on and so forth. And we said, no, actually, it's not about right or wrong. It's about a necessity, and it's about health, and it's about recognizing and being honest and truthful about how women's lives actually work out. So I think it was those really very thoughtful approaches and doing the research, having really good people working with us. And I have to say that at bottom, I mean, there were just these fantastic young women and young men, young women bringing in the young men and saying, you go and do that, you do the other, hundreds and thousands of them. So it was a real mobilization and engagement for young people, a politicization. That was absolutely inspiring. I was definitely by far the oldest person around the place, but that was very humbling actually, to see their ideas, their vision, their passion, their absolute hope. And also they can just cut through things. I remember a banner at one of our marches held up by a very young woman, by a girl, and it just simply said something like, why do we still have to fight for this shit? It was just like, let's cut to right down to the baseline here.
Vanina, you here, I'll be speaking. You did not have as much success as we would have liked in Argentina. What are the lessons that you learned from the defeat, so to speak, and how are you mobilizing moving forward?
Las lecciones que aprendiste de tu movimiento y los siguientes pasos.
Bueno, en la Argentina lo que estamos haciendo es que los feminismos estemos juntos. Quería retomar la idea del aborto porque realmente también para la Argentina es una lucha que comenzó con la recuperación de la democracia. En 1984 una mujer protestó con un cartel que decía no a la maternidad y al placer. Desde que recuperamos la democracia estamos peleando por aborto legal gratuito.
Democracy again. We've been fighting for abortion.
Cerca de lograrlo.
And I think we're close to
una de las ganancias del movimiento New
One of the
Menos,
wins from the New
es
Menos
que
movement.
por primera vez muchas jóvenes
For the
salieron a la
first time,
calle
a lot of
con
young women
adolescentes.
went to the streets.
Realmente se sintieron conmovidas e
They
interpeladas
felt as part of this movement.
por nuestro gran basta.
They felt
Basta de
integrated in
violencia.
this stop movement.
Todas esas jóvenes hoy
All these young
tienen
women,
la lucha por el aborto legal y se sumaron.
they're all still fighting for the abortion, legalization
Y la
of abortion, and they all
característica de
joined
los
the movement.
feminismos en la Argentina y sobre todo de la lucha por el
A
aborto es
characterism
que
of
es
feminism in
intergeneracional.
Argentina is that it
Las
goes beyond
viejas
generations.
tienen más de 90 años y salen a la calle junto
There's
con
women
las
that are
jóvenes
over 90 years old and they still go on the streets and they're still fighting.
And this must be very interesting now in the sense that now Tina, we had assumed, like in South Africa where abortion is legal, now you are watching a complete regression. Alabama has me so upset, like Miss Nina said, and we're singing that song again. We're looking at Georgia. So you're looking at a new movement, you're looking at movements that are coming up, and then the United States is deciding to do a roundabout turn. What does that mean, and how do we counteract that?
Well, first of all, it means we have to be vigilant, right? We thought we had this solved with a constitutional right in 1973, and then, to be honest, we kind of sat back, right? And we did not stay on the front lines, and we did not. And meanwhile, the other side got very energized, and they've had a strategy of chipping away, right? First, it was let's increase the regulations on abortion clinics so that there can be very few. Let's increase all of the burdens on women when they try to exercise their constitutional rights, and we relied on the court system, to sort of overturn those. But guess what? We're losing the court system, right? Because of the judicial appointments that the new administration has been making. We saw that most starkly in the Supreme Court appointments. So, we've got to get back to grassroots organizing. We have to get back to taking back legislatures. A good example is my home state of Illinois. Illinois 30 years ago was one of the most anti-choice states in the country. We actually were the home of a lot of the anti-choice bills that went to the Supreme Court to be overturned. And 30 years ago, a group of us got together through an organization called Personal PAC to create an electoral strategy to change what our state legislature looked like. And we did it because just last week we passed the most progressive and protective law for abortion rights anywhere in the country. So it can be done, but it's hard work. Everybody's got to go to the polls all the time. That was my message this morning at the plenary, is that we are in a historical moment, and there's no luxury of sitting back and saying, oh, I'm not so inspired by that candidate. Maybe, I'm not going to go vote, right? Everybody has to vote. Everybody has to be active because we can't take our rights for granted, right? At any given moment, we cannot take our rights for granted.
And because it absolutely matters to everybody. I can remember, men over the years saying, oh, this is not, I wouldn't dream of becoming involved. I mean, I wouldn't, it's not my issue. And I'm saying it is your issue, actually. Women don't get pregnant by and large most of the time on their own.
Most of the time.
It is actually, it is about men and relationships between women and so on. And it's also about kind of the values that a country has and who it stands up for. And I always say that our referendum, it was about abortion, but it was also about saying to people, look, let's be blunt about this. The question, yes or no, is do women matter? And are women equal? That's really what it's always about. And that's why we get attacked by the right. And it's not just in the US. I mean, there are problems in Europe. When you look at Poland, where women's rights are hugely under attack. Hungary is gearing up, and they've already been attacking lesbians and gays and bis and trans people, and they are beginning to attack abortion now. So they're the two major things. It's that bodily autonomy and integrity.
Indeed.
That they come at it like a battering ram to try and reduce us to our biology, and we are not vessels. We're not vehicles for making babies and staying at home,
Sure.
So, but I think we're seeing it really everywhere.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Well, and your point, Ailbhe, that it is about men too, is I think the people who are trying to get Roe versus Wade overturned, right, in the United States, overlook the fact that Roe, and I say this as a lawyer, right? Roe was the first decision that then led to a whole series of privacy rights beyond just reproductive rights. Privacy rights, around our own homes, around our, our internet identities, all those kinds of privacy rights that all Americans hold very dear, they actually stem from, guess what? The Roe versus Wade decision. So you overturn that, what starts to happen? Are we going to have more government intrusion? Are we going to have those rights that a lot of men really believe in? They don't understand that right to bodily integrity, as Ami says, is the foundation for then a whole set of things that apply to men as well around bodily integrity and self-determination and the ability to make decisions about your own life.
There was a great Facebook post that went on a couple of weeks ago which said that if one woman had sex with 100 men over 1 year, she could only carry one pregnancy to term. And yet 100 men could impregnate 100 women. So why are we focusing our attention on women's behavior instead of men's behavior? But a word of caution, so to speak, that I want to open up is that legalization, as we know, is just the beginning. Are you concerned about things like the gag rule? In South Africa, 50% of all abortions, even though it's legal, are all illegal because of stigma and because now access to information and contraception is limited. Are you concerned, and are you learning maybe from countries like us, Ailbhe, what to do now in order to avoid these pushbacks in the future?
Yes, well, certainly. I mean, obviously we're very aware and very alert to what's happening, and our big question now is you fight a referendum campaign and it's over, and then you're immediately fighting to ensure that there is genuine access to services for everybody. But our legislation is set up in such a way that it goes through the primary healthcare service. So you go to your local doctor basically, and it's free for absolutely everybody. But of course, that doesn't mean that every single woman is going to be able to get easily to her doctor. And we have a 3-day cooling off period, which is really annoying because let's suppose you don't have money for bus fare to keep going back to go twice to your doctor. If you have a disability, you're in an abusive relationship, you are living in our direct provision system if you're a migrant.
And it assumes that you have not thought about it before you walked into the clinic.
It is so insulting. It is so deeply insulting. That was a political move. But we are very, very, very aware that constitutional decisions and legislation are the framework, but that actually what really matters and what really counts to everyone who needs an abortion is, can you get it? Can you get access to it? And that's true here in Canada, as well as it is in South Africa, in Ireland, in Poland, wherever it happens to be. Who has access? And as ever, it is the poorest and most marginalized who have the least access, always. And I think we always need to, when we speak about intersectionality, particularly in relation to abortion, it's so important to keep bearing that in mind and keep being reminded of it. And we've, looked very closely at South African legislation and thought it was very good. But just the other day, there was a really interesting panel. A lovely man, Joaquin Ozura, was speaking about Kenya, and he was saying, look, access is a huge problem. Service provision is not sufficiently anything like adequately developed.
En Argentina, el aborto está permitido
abortion was only allowed under certain circumstances.
Problemas para la salud de la gestante,
health,
o peligro de muerte.
Or women's in danger of death.
Esto que es un derecho constitucional desde 1921.
This is a constitutional right.
Aún ahora tiene problemas, tenemos problemas de acceso para acceder.
Even now we have
Por eso
issues
está
in accessing it.
demostrado largamente que el sistema de causales no funciona para asegurar el derecho al aborto.
Doesn't guarantee access to abortion.
En estos últimos tiempos se conocieron casos de niñas de 11 años
cases
embarazadas
of young women,
a quienes les negaban
children, 11-year-old,
el derecho a
that
tener
have been
un aborto.
denied access to abortion.
Solo con movilización del feminismo, de las
Just with mobilization, feminist movements,
conseguimos que esos
achieved
derechos sean asegurados. Pero
that those rights were secure.
La mayoría de las mujeres que necesitan y que tienen las garantías legales para acceder a un aborto
that need access to abortion,
en un hospital,
in a hospital,
en el sistema clandestino,
they end up going
muchas
to
veces
behind alley
seguro.
abortion.
Y las muertes se producen
And
en los sectores populares.
Happen
No
in
mueren
popular
las
sectors.
ricas. mueren las pobres.
It doesn't happen to rich women. It happens to poor women.
All the time. Vanina, what do you think the movement in Argentina needs in order to be able to get to the next phase where you would be happy with the way that the law is set up and where you've won victories for most women and not just for rich women?
Nosotros en la Argentina,
We in Argentina,
seguimos insistiendo.
we keep
El año
persistent.
pasado no salió
Last
votado la
we
legalización del
didn't
aborto en el
legalize
Senado,
abortion
en una de las
in the
cámaras,
Senate.
pero hace pocos días volvió a presentarse la
But just
campaña
a couple
nacional
days
por el derecho
ago,
al aborto
there
legal,
was a
seguro y
campaign
gratuito que tengo un
for
panfleto acá.
abortion
Volvió a
that she's
presentar el
carrying on her
proyecto y
shoulder.
creo que vamos en buen camino.
I think we're on a good path.
Creo que necesitamos arrancar compromisos más sólidos
I think we
de
need
distintos partidos
more
políticos,
solid compromise
para que finalmente voten. Y
for
dentro de
everyone to
poco
vote.
hay elecciones en la Argentina.
And
Creo que eso
elections will be coming
va
up in
a
Argentina.
definir bastante el voto de las mujeres, digamos, de las mujeres y de las personas
And that will
trans, de
define
los varones
women's
trans
vote.
que también pueden tener hijos. Porque no puede ser que nuestros derechos no entren
Doesn't mean it's not possible that our rights doesn't go.
dentro de las propuestas
They
de
don't
los
go into the
candidatos.
proposal of
Nosotras tenemos que estar ahí
candidates.
y tenemos que tener garantías de que
They
nuestros
need
derechos
to go in there and they
van a
need
estar
to be
asegurados
guaranteed
y
that
van a
our
estar
rights are
garantizados por el
guaranteed.
Estado.
Yes.
And Tina, what has it meant for you to participate in Women Deliver 2019 in particular, and for the women's rights movement in general?
Oh, well, it's been fantastic. You know, I told Katya earlier today, I think, you know, there's such an outpouring because we all needed this. We're sort of in a moment where we needed that jolt, we needed that sisterhood, that sort of feeling of being together. But the women's movement needs it. So as I said in the plenary, you know, our women's movement is very fragmented. You know, we have anti-sexual violence and anti-sexual harassment, and then we have women's economic empowerment, we have education over here, you know, we have, you know, healthcare over here. And my experience when I was in the White House, you know, as executive director of the White House Council on Women and Girls, is that all the groups would come to us, but they weren't talking to each other. Even if they were in the same sector, they were often the international groups, weren't talking to the US domestic groups. And, you know, and yet, there's so much commonality that we need to have. And even if it's not your issue, that's the issue of the day, you should be supporting the immigration rights people, because in the next moment, it's abortion rights that's under attack. And that fragmentation is what keeps us at being far less powerful than we need to be. And it gets exploited. Yeah. You know, the fragmentation gets exploited by those who oppose us. So, but what's great about this is that you go out of here onto the floor and you see every different issue, and not just in one country, but across the globe, so that we see the geographic and the commonalities across region, you know, across race, across religion, across caste. You know, that is unbelievable, which is what we really need to have. And the challenge is when everybody goes home from Women Deliver, right? Not just to keep working, you know, and in our own movements, but to keep that intersectionality going, to keep the connections that you made today here at Women Deliver with someone who is operating in a different area, to keep that connection going, and to be generous in your support, right? Of if it's an issue in Argentina that you need support, and even if it's not my main focus, then if you call upon me, I need to support you. You know, that's what we need to do. We don't do it enough.
But it's so interesting that, because I think there's a kind of generational thing. When I, you know, first became involved in feminism back in the 1970s. Oh my God.
Me too. Me too. You and I both.
But you know, you did everything, and people used to say to me, "Oh, you must be a lawyer," and I say, "No, I'm not a lawyer. But there are no lawyers working on this." Or you must have medical, and I said, "No, not medical." You know, you just did everything, and you still do. So sometimes people say to me, "Oh, your life's work on abortion." I think no, actually, it's been a section.
Yeah.
It's been one issue, because the issues are absolutely connected, which is why, you know, I'm so pleased to see that concept of patriarchy as a system and a structure is really one which is being taken up by young women now, young feminists, because it is a system and everything is connected, and particularly our bodies and our economic independence are the two bases, and we need to keep them dependent. But I think, being here is wonderful for us who are here, but it's also giving a pretty strong sign out there that we are a big global movement.
Indeed.
I hope so.
We certainly hope so. And what about you, Vanina? What is participating in Women Deliver this event for you?
Realmente me siento también como muy encantada de haber conocido a tantas personas.
Able to meet all these people.
El feminismo siempre nos da buenas noticias.
Always
es
gives
como
us good
una
news.
gran casa que
It's
nos
like
da
a big
buenas
house
noticias.
that gives us good news.
Quería agregar que, lo que pasa en la Argentina o lo que pase con nuestras luchas por aborto
what happens in Argentina with our fight for abortion,
repercute en toda América Latina.
It affects all of Latin America.
Del mismo modo lo que pase en México con
in the
la
same
misma
manner,
lucha con
what
nacionalizar el
happens in
aborto
Mexico,
más allá de la
legalizing
de
abortion goes
México.
beyond Mexico.
Por eso nuestras luchas son importantes, no son solo nacionales,
It's not a
son
national fight.
regionales,
It is a regional fight.
son globales, es mucho
There
más,
is a global fight.
van más allá de las fronteras.
It goes beyond the
Es
borders.
importante
I
rescatarlo.
think that's important to highlight.
Absolutely.
Something, just to wrap up the conversation, but one of the things that are significant now that may not have existed, say, 10 or 20 years ago, is the power of social media. And how much for them. So when you talk about we're being seen around the world, because we have a hashtag that goes on. Tina, how do you think we can even maximize more on this beautiful phenomenon, which can be negative, but really, for the most part, activism has seemed to benefit from it?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, the people that you can reach, I often, when I talk about what's going on with sexual harassment and why we're in such a moment now, even though, we've been combating sexual harassment for over 30 years in the United States, right? It's been 30 years since it was illegal.
Right.
We had Anita Hill 26 years ago, right, as a moment, but it kind of came and went. And one of the reasons I think it came and went was, if you were someone who had the same experience as Anita Hill, and you saw her testifying, about Clarence Thomas, what would you do? You would tell 10 friends, right? And it would go no place because you had nothing else to do. And what was so brilliant about Tirana and #MeToo and her foresight to bring that forward so many years ago was we had that hashtag there when the Harvey Weinstein moment happened. And then by using that, instead of just your 10 friends, you could post it. Millions of people saw it. It gave courage to millions of others, right? Whether they chose to speak or not. And actually, the more people spoke out, the more we could see the dimensions of a problem that we didn't know how extensive it was, right? And now we know it's everywhere, in every industry, at all levels, of companies. And it's revealed itself in a way that's undeniable to CEOs and to boards of directors and to political leaders who now know that we have a very broad problem we need to address. But I really would submit it would not have happened without social media. And we know it wouldn't because it didn't 26 years ago when we had the moment to do it. But it's important to seize the moment. So the critical thing about social media, to make something more than just a hashtag, is that it has to be connected to a political strategy or an organizing strategy. I mean, and that's why, I'm very proud of the work that we've done at Time's Up, right? Was to connect the hashtag, to creating a Time's Up legal defense fund or advocating for legislative change or working together with companies to make them better, and more responsive to their workers. You've got to have both things working together. Otherwise, the hashtag just goes out into the universe,
to the ether.
And it just is out there.
Isn't it amazing that we can only recognize and appreciate now how incredibly brave and lonely this battle must have been for Anita Hill at the time. So to have the hashtag #MeToo, I can't actually. It's quite horrifying.
When you compare it with the Christine Blasey, that was so very different. I mean, I do think social media is extraordinary. It's an amazing organizing tool as well for rallying your people. I mean, just in a very, very practical way for the organizing you need to do for a campaign. But there is still always, I think, a challenge to move people to ensure that they understand that it's not enough on its own, that there is something about getting those feet down on the ground, on the streets, like you've done in Argentina and elsewhere, like we did in Ireland, that there is something about that physical visibility of masses of people that terrifies politicians, absolutely terrifies them.
Yes.
Yeah.
They run for the hills.
Yeah.
So we need to, and they don't run for the hills quite so much, I think. You know, there's that physical presence really matters. And I think that we need never to give up on that. So there's the actually getting out there and rallying and marching and the, you know, the million women.
Voting. So I hate to sound like a broken record about voting, but I'm telling you, you know, here in Canada has election, and we're coming up in 2020.
But the next thing I was going to say was the door knocking. You get out there to demonstrate, but then you knock on people's doors, and telephones don't do it. You eyeball people and you say, I'm voting this way. How about you? Oh, would you like to talk about that? Right. And we certainly found with abortion that people said, well, I don't really want to talk about abortion, but I'm going to vote yes. Right. It was that being asked. Right. It's that sort of human connection, isn't there?
It is.
So the door knocking is really good. And we must never forget those things, despite the power of social media.
Just to wrap up, final thoughts on whatever it is that you want to reflect on. Just final thoughts on for you, Vanina.
Quiero decir
organización.
Coincido con mi compañera. No hay
I agree with
hashtag
you.
Que tenga el
There's no
impacto
hashtag
que
that
las personas
has the same
organizadas
impact
en la
that
calle
people have
detrás
organized.
de un objetivo.
And what about you, Tina? Final thoughts?
Not to forget the power of women. You know, we are, you know, a majority. We are, if we can use that majority and our voices together, then really, you know, we should be unstoppable. And I think that's really the power of women deliver. So I think remembering that as we go home is critical.
And last, but certainly not least, Ms. Ailbhe.
Well, I do think belief that we, you know, despite the difficult times we're in, that makes it all the more important for us to have the belief that we can create a better world. And to do that, we need unity and solidarity, and always no woman left behind, ever. That we have to think about everybody and work with everybody and include and embrace and hold close to ourselves the lives of all, and that I think is good for the world. It can't not be good for the world.
As we would say in my country, South Africa, amandla, which just simply means power to the people. That's for all of us, and solidarity. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you, my amazing guests. I'm very pleased to have been in conversation with you.
Thank you.